Hi everyone. So today we are going to do a webinar on the anatomy of a cyber attack.
Well, that sounds like a good idea. Been a lot of cyber attacks lately.
There is. Okay. And gotta love technology.
So I think we can use the middle screen and advance down at the bottom of the middle screen, and we can click through slides there. There we go. New setup today. We're always changing things. So quick overview about our company. I'm Brian McCafferty,
I'm Jessica Musso.
and I'm the founder, and Jessica is the operations manager here at Automation Concepts. We're a 30-year-old IT service company servicing the greater Boston and Providence area. We provide fully managed, that's outsourced flat rate IT support. We're a managed service provider, an MSP. In addition, we have a deep background in network security. And probably today, the biggest threat any company can encounter is their own staff and lack of training.
So, the big question is that we have to ask every company is, where is your security within the company?
Yeah, that's a major thing. You know, we've taken great strides over the last 10, even 15 years to protect the perimeter of a company. And a couple things have happened. Hackers have gone beyond the perimeter. They're actually targeting individuals, which we'll talk about a little today about the email phishing attacks, where they actually profile an individual and set up an email designed to lure them in. They also are scanning ports constantly. So the firewall protects you from that type of scanning, but we've also identified a lot of threat players out there. And last but not least, there is a lot of more mobile workforce. So you have people on public Wi-Fi networks, and that could be a real issue.
I even think with the coronavirus coming up, that's going to be an even bigger issue.
Yeah, we're going to do another webinar just in a little while, probably this afternoon, about enabling a remote workforce to deal with the coronavirus. We are located in Massachusetts. Yesterday, the governor issued a state of emergency. He's asked all companies to stop interstate travel and face-to-face conferences, and urged even residents to not travel. We found it only takes one person. There was 170 people met for a Biogen conference, and 70 of them were infected. And a CVS employee was at that conference, got on a plane, went to an office in Chicago, and now that entire Chicago office is now under threat. So remote workforce, we have so many clients calling in saying, how can we get this enabled? So that's our next webinar.
So like Brian said, we'll probably be doing that later today. So keep a lookout for that. We'll be sending out a link, and it will be also linked on our website as well. So going forward and talking, we're going to talk about a couple of steps that are typically involved in a cyber attack.
Yeah, so there's, the question is, there's a 1 step, 10 steps, 20 steps, but the old one was social engineering. So it's kind of conning your way into a company. There's a few things we always caution people about. One is taking pictures within the office. You take a picture and you inadvertently take a picture of something on a whiteboard, some company confidential information. Worst of all, the person who has their password taped to their screen or anything like that that could be used to infiltrate the company. A lot of people also are, they get hired and they shoot onto Facebook a picture of their new employee name tag or name badge, holding it up saying, hey, I'm a new employee of ABC Corporation. Well, in a big company where you don't know all the employees, that's your form of identification, is that name tag. So now that format of that name tag is up on social media, the hacker, if he wants to gain direct access into a company, can now go duplicate that name badge, put John Jones, IT supervisor on there, waltz into a company and say, hey, I'm with the home office and we need to look at your firewall and stuff. Can you let me into the server room? And more often than not, things like that happen. So it's harder in a small company, but you really need to check. And if somebody calls in and says, hey, I'm working, so the away message also, I should mention, away message is another thing. So your IT guy puts up an away message and says, I'm going to be at a conference this week. And somebody emails them and it's like, hey, this is Harry, I'm going to be at a conference this week. So then they call an unsuspecting user and say, hey, this is John. Harry asked me to fill in for him while he's on the conference. So that must be legit, right? You know Harry and you know he's at a conference, so therefore you're the default IT guy. Yeah, can you help me log in and give me access to your password? Oh, sure. So don't do that. Don't fall for the trick. If they are really legit IT, say, you know what, I can't share my password with you, but go ahead and reset it. And when you're done, please reset it to something and let me know, or set it, let me know what the password is, and please set it to change at my first login. So if they can't change your password, then you shouldn't be giving them your password. You should never give them your password. Just ask them to change it.
Yeah. I think with social engineering, I think you can also take a lot of the practices that we practice in the workforce, and you can also apply it to your personal life as well in social engineering.
That's true. Very true. Okay, so
direct scanning for open ports.
Yeah, so 17 seconds is, and I've seen even lower numbers now, from the time you go onto the internet, plug in, connect to wireless, you are being scanned by a bad actor, whether it's, some Russian hacking conglomerate, the Iranians, the Chinese, who pick your favorite country, North Koreans, the evil empire, or just the kid next door who's going to have some fun. People are scanning, looking for open ports. So every program, every piece of software uses a unique set of ports. So by looking at the traffic, so ports are like gates. So if you picture an interstate, there's multiple lanes on an interstate. So depending on what port if the port is a lane on an interstate, depending on what lane or what port you're using, a hacker can tell what software you're running. And one of the big things they can do is you're sitting in a Starbucks and they go, hey, he's using Adobe Reader, and Adobe Reader needs to be updated all the time. So I've got this crafty little payload that looks like an Adobe Reader update, and I've got Adobe spelled slightly wrong, but nobody will notice, .com, and I have an SSL certificate even, and I'm going to send you that link and get you to click on it, and you're going to go to what you think is the Adobe Update website, and you're going to download my payload for me. So that's what you have to be careful on public networks. You really don't want to be doing updates. You don't probably want to be in Starbucks on their wireless anyway, but you certainly don't want to be doing updates and downloading and sharing data. And you want to make sure everything you're doing is encrypted. They're also looking to intercept emails, passwords, anything that's unencrypted. So that's a direct scanning piece. People have become a little better about that. I think the next slide talks about phishing attacks.
Yes. Spear phishing.
Yeah, so phishing is not, if you think of it, it's like fishing for the fish in the sea, where you're trolling out there looking for targets. Spear phishing is a personalized attack. So they, step one, they do reconnaissance and they go, hey, we would like to attack Automation Concepts. And we know Jessica is the operations manager there, because we went to the website and we found her picture, and now we start trolling around and we find out what Jessica's interested in. So we're not going to get personal and share all your personal information here, but they may find a few things that you are engaged in doing, or you may be trying to buy a new car or something, and they may craft a piece of email that looks just like something you researched and say, oh, here is the information. I've got more information about that new Mazda you're looking at buying. Click here and download the information. And it looks legit. And you just talked to the Mazda dealer, and you maybe posted something on social media. I test drove a Mazda, and you click on it thinking it's from a salesman, and boom, you've downloaded what looks like some legitimate information about a Mazda, but it's also got a virus payload in it. So step one's reconnaissance. They find out more about you so they can craft an email. I think I jumped ahead a couple slides. Let's go to the next slide.
I also think spear phishing is probably one of the #1 attacks that we see. We get a ton of emails from clients being, is this legit? Or we have a lot of people asking, like, they'll fish for HR questions even.
That's true. So, I mean, let's back up a second, because I talked about how well we protect the perimeter, and we touched about lack of user training. So why is spear phishing so popular? It's because it gives the hackers the ability to bypass all the external defenses of the company and go after the weakest link, the untrained employee. And when you're, there was an old thing about the vampire, you can put the garlic or whatever protects vampires, but if you invite a vampire into your house, he has free reign. And they're looking to get, they're the vampire looking to get invited in by a resident, a user. So weaponization and delivery, step 2. So attacker uses there's the dark web out there, which is the black market for hacking tools, the flea market for hacking tools. So you can go out and buy any kind of hacking tool on the dark web. So he may go out and say, oh, Jessica's a perfect candidate if I can bundle this up and put this thing into an email. He may already know that you might have a Mac. He can tell from the way the signatures are that you have a Mac. Macs are one of the most vulnerable pieces of PCs out there, computers out there now.
I think it's one of the biggest myths out there is that Apples don't get viruses. They do get viruses.
And because people live under that myth, they're an easy attack. So, he might have decide what kind of operating system you have and buy a set of hacking tools or a payload that he puts into the email, and he bundles it up and he sends a convincing email. Another example I had read on the internet was, somebody's on social media and they have a daughter in softball, and a hacker pretends to be a parent, and it's a busy executive, and they're like, oh, did you know the girls are trying to raise money to go to a trip to Florida? Would you donate $50? And here's a link. And it's like, of course, everybody wants to send their kid to, the World Series in Florida. So I'm going to give $50. And that's really a link to a payload.
Yep.
So exploitation and installation. So they deliver the email now. They've crafted it. They delivered it. If it's well crafted, 96% chance that somebody's going to click on that link because they want to send their kid to the World Series in Florida or whatever, and that software gets installed. So it has a bunch of different ways it can execute, but typically it's going to phone home and say, I'm here, I'm installed, and I'm waiting for my command. Tell me what you want to do. A lot of times they won't do anything initially. They're going to let that thing sleep. They don't want to attract attention to the fact that they just installed some nasty virus on your computer. They want to lay dormant for a while so you don't think to run a virus scan after you've been at the coffee shop or do a cleanup. And it may not even install till the next time you reboot your system. If you're using a tablet or a notebook, a lot of us just close the lid and we hibernate. Until we're told to reboot, we don't reboot. And then you reboot a week later, you forgot you were even in a coffee shop and that thing gets installed. Still may not be evident to you. So what they really want to do is get onto a computer network, right? So this is command and control. So they're living on your notebook and you've been traveling around and they haven't found anything interesting. You come back to the office and you plug in. And now they notice other computers. That code wakes up and it starts looking for other computers around it and testing and finding out what it can gain access to, what your credentials, it may have your credentials and what your credentials are good for. It may through other hacking tools now. So the hacker now is communicating with the software on your computer. He may be sending additional hacking tools down. Says, oh, I'm on a Windows 2008 domain, and I know that's not patched. So let's see if I can get elevated privileges and get administrative rights to this network. And then it starts to spread across the network. So, and this will go on for a while. So this is really the reconnaissance continues. So first they did reconnaissance to find out who you were to get you baited up and trapped. Now they're doing reconnaissance to see what they can get access to. And they're working very hard to disable any protections and avoid any detections. So a hacker on average is in a network for 191 days. 191 days. It's like half a year.
Wow.
So action and exfiltration, step 5. So depending on what they got there for, now the biggest thing now is encryption. And for years, companies said, we're a small company, nobody cares about my data. And in fact, nobody did, but you do. And it's just like, think about kidnapping a child for ransom. The kidnapper does typically, I mean, I know there are some parents that kidnap, but typically a kidnapper doesn't kidnap a child because he wants another child. They want money.
Yeah.
And they're going to kidnap your data because you want your child, you pay the ransom. You want your data, you pay the ransom. So they may have encryption bombs set to run. We had one client years ago, they actually encrypted a system, we restored it. It was a new client to us. So a week later, they were encrypted again. So we did some deep analysis and we found out the former vendor had left an open port that was exploited. And whoever dropped the encryption dropped 3 sets of encryption that went off on timers. So we blocked the 3rd encryption. We were able to restore from backups because of the way we did our backups. But they had actually, the same encryption would run, a week later run again, a week later run again.
Wow.
And we've also seen where, if backup retention is 90 days, they will disable your backup. And they will, again, this is part of observation and research. They determine you're using, Gen X backup. And they figured out how to make it look like Gen X backup is running, but the data isn't really running. And they know your cloud provider's typical retention policy is 90 days. So at day 91, they can encrypt your data and you don't have a way to back it up because they've disabled the backup 90 days ago and the retention is 90 days. So they're very, very cunning and intelligent. And this is all, they do this all under the covers, all in the secrecy and darkness. And you, a lot of times, unless you're actively scanning your network, have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
They go out of their way to hide their tracks. And then step 6, obfuscation and or assault. And that first word, I looked for an alternative. I didn't find a good one, but basically they're hiding. They're covering their tracks and they're hiding. They're hiding from detection. And then the final assault is either if it's a malicious attack, they will destroy your systems and your data, or if it's a ransomware attack, they're going to encrypt and then hold you for ransom. And ransom can get pretty nasty if they don't get any satisfaction from you. They may start going directly to your clients and saying, would you like to buy your data back? And did you know that XYZ company has lost your data and there's been a breach and they didn't tell you? And they're going to put pressure on you to pay that money or get the client to pay the money or go public with a data dump. And it's disastrous. And hopefully everybody has cyber insurance and knows the level of cyber insurance. And we ask our clients to please provide us with your cyber insurance policy, provide us with their agent. We try to have a conversation with the agent because there's ways you need to respond under your cyber insurance policy to protect your insurance claim. And if you do things and you haven't notified them and you destroy forensic evidence, they may choose to not pay that claim. So you have to be extremely careful how you proceed.
So before we go on, we already talked about that we're going to be doing another webinar later on today about the coronavirus and the remote workforce. Before we go there, but Brian, can you tell everybody what are the key takeaways that we can take from this? What are the main things that an employer needs to do?
Well, first of all, you should be doing training. Training your employees. We have some training services available. There are a series of short videos that each employee can go through. They're quizzed afterwards. And then we can automatically run phishing email campaigns back in a couple weeks after the training to make sure the training stuck. And we can identify the individuals, your employees, your staff, maybe your management, that are still clicking on these links. So it's training, testing, reinforcing. There are a number of tools we're encouraging our clients to implement. Some of it is a DNS service that when they click on it, they keep track of these malicious websites, and they'll prevent you from going there. With the mobile workforce in particular, it's important because people are going to be taking their work laptops and working from home, so they're not behind your firewall anymore. So this DNS service can act as a firewall as they're outside of the office and outside your perimeter. That's probably number one. Number two is multi-factor authentication. You see as MFA, some people call it two-factor. So basically it's what you have, what you know, a code that's generated by your phone that's only unique to you. We use a code generator that generates a new code every 30 seconds, along with our username and our password. And then there's geofencing, where you can block access from countries that are known to be bad players, like Russia and Iran and North Korea. So if you're not doing business in those countries or have a potential to do business in the countries, with our firewall that we use, we can block those countries from accessing your network. But again, once you go outside the network, you need this DNS service to protect your clients. And there's layers and layers of security. Training, number one. DNS, number two. Multi-factor authentication. Strong passwords, not, password one.
Yeah.
There was a post this week. We were part of a security group, and there was a post. One of the people in our group was checking out, and he was at a store terminal, and they had the username and password one, I think with an @ sign, taped on a sticky note. And he said, "That's terrible." He said, "Oh, it's just for the one user. She's new and she can't remember her password." It's like, well, you shouldn't hire somebody who can't remember password one and number one, and you shouldn't be using password one.
Yeah.
And don't tape it in public. I mean, if she could see it, the people checking out were seeing it. It was crazy, but people still do it. So
good. Well, thank you for that, Brian. Like I said, we're going to be having a webinar later on today that we'll be sending out. If you guys have any questions about this webinar, please send up any follow-up questions to marketing@atco.com. Events will be listed on our website, and other videos too are also all linked on our website, so you can go see previous ones that we've done in the past. Other than that, we're all set. So we will talk to you guys later. Have a great day.
thank you.